the division of our continent benefit the imperialist forces. We don't need white supervisors. We need skilled Africans for us to run a successful economy. I'm a king. Let me take this opportunity to really humble myself by appreciating those who invited me here to Rhodes University. Cecil John Rhodes University, named after the most brutal colonizer, the most racist and imperialist, who would not have wanted you who are seated here to be here today, because he hated everything else that looked like us and treated us like slaves and animals. And we are shocked that we still, 30 years after democracy, have institutions like this one, where it's supposed to be a stage for intellectual contestation, still being called after the most brutal individuals who have made our life pain and misery. Grahamstown has changed the name to Makanda. Why can't this university change a name for a better name? What hesitates you from changing this university from Rhodes to Steve Biko University? There will never be a discussion about the security and good governance in Africa without acknowledging the damage that has been caused by colonizers and the imperialist forces. Colonialists want to exploit our minerals without being held accountable. It is the colonialists who are corrupting the leadership of Africa and making sure that those who are not corrupt are replaced by the corrupt puppets who will allow colonialism to continue in the African continent. Today, they want to choose who are the leaders for African people. As we stand here today, Gaddafi should be an enemy of our people, according to the declaration of the Western imperialism, because Gaddafi stood for our people. Today, Mugabe, who was a darling, if you think Mandela was loved, you must revisit your history and check when Mugabe was becoming the president of Zimbabwe after the defeat of Rhodesia. He was the most celebrated man. He was loved by everybody until he started questioning the issue of the land, that the land must be transferred from the colonizer to the people of Zimbabwe. Today, every African leader who served for a very long time in Africa, we are told is a fascist, is undemocratic. This person is a dictator. But such words were never said about Queen Elizabeth, who ruled for more than 50 years. And it's not just monarchy, like a Zulu monarchy or Abatembu monarchy. It's a monarchy that has got powers on the political systems of Britain. There is no any prime minister in Britain who can proceed with anything else politically without the go-ahead of the Queen, now the King. No one of those prime ministers can declare a war. Only the Queen or the King can declare a war. But that person has never been democratically elected. That person has got no term of office. They serve until the grave, and they are not called fascists and dictators. As young people who are engaged in this space, you have a duty to ask yourself, how did we govern ourselves in the earlier primitive society before the arrival of the colonialists? And we're not asking here of an ancient history. Very recent, you'll realize that we were able to govern ourselves without being dictated to by the white people in terms of how we must govern ourselves. Today, we must be told that a good governance is a governance that complies with IMF or World Bank. Anything else outside that, even if your people are benefiting, you are not a good leader. Actually, you are a dictator. Gaddafi nationalized the oil industry when he took over Libya. And he made sure that the people of Libya receive free health care and housing. The people of Libya actually used to get a piece of land for getting married. That's why many of you will remain single, because you realize there's going to be a problem here. As a way of appreciating the young ones who are beginning to establish the family unit, Gaddafi used to thank them with a piece of land. Today, Gaddafi is an enemy because he stood against apartheid and associated with all African countries that were fighting against colonialism. Gaddafi is an enemy today because he stood with the people of Palestine. Immediately when Gaddafi died, we saw Africans being taken by force in Libya as slaves, even post-colonial period. After Gaddafi died, Libya, which we're told it was under dictatorship and the most brutal man, has never known peace. It is under the group of warlords, under the militia, and the people who are forcing themselves into power through a barrel of a gun. Today, one of the most unstable countries is DRC, where the most strategic minerals are found. Since the passing of Lumumba till to date, DRC has never known peace. They will never know peace because those who are exploiting the resources of that area are the ones who are sponsoring the rebels in that area. They don't want authorities in DRC, because authorities will mean that we must also control the airspace. And when you control the airspace, you know which plane came in to do what and went out at what time. They are sponsoring rebels, doing land strips in the forests, where they land and take the minerals undetected and leave DRC. Today, DRC was supposed to be one of the most richest countries, but the imperialist forces will not allow it. Sankara was killed. And when you think Sankara was killed by his friend, that one was just the one who pulled the trigger. But there are brains behind that man who pulled the trigger, who, by the way, was a friend of Sankara. Burkina Faso would have been one of the most beautiful countries in Africa had Sankara lived long. The man who said to his people, here is the land, you must produce for the government and produce for yourself. Sankara, who loved education. Sankara, who gave our people health care. Sankara, who knew that there will never be total liberation of people if women are not liberated themselves. Sankara, who said, I'm not going to be part of borrowing money from IMF and the World Bank. I want to demonstrate to you that those who seeked good for us did not stay long. If you come to South Africa, Chris Hani's crime was not because he killed anyone, was not because he was mobilizing anyone. Chris was just speaking his mind. Not because he went to mobilize the people of Alexandra, not because he went to mobilize the people of Eastern Cape against what the negotiations was talking about. He just said, this is not what we went into the bush for. If we are going to take it through a barrel of a pen, and we don't fight, then you must know we'll never realize that which we went to the bush for. And they realized that this man cannot be persuaded, not even by money. And they did not waste time. They finished him off. You listen to the name and the surname of a fellow African, and by that you isolate them. You look at them and say, these are not South Africans. These are Nigerians. This can be Miss South Africa. This can be that. Marfeljun can be a player of rugby, South Africa, and get celebrated. No one will dare to question, where does this surname of Feljun come from? Because we've been made to celebrate that which looks down at us. Anything that looks like you, you hate. Anything that sounds different from you, you hate. We are hated everywhere else in the world. Everywhere else where black people are found. It doesn't matter their accent. They can speak the best English they want to speak, best accent. As long as the color of their skin looks like mine, they will be isolated. You get isolated to a point where even when you go to China, a young person who has never been exposed to a black person, when they see you, they start trying to clean you. But it looks like you are dirty. Because that's how we're being looked at. Why do we get the privilege to hate on each other? If the unity of Africa is not important, why are they fighting against it so much? If it was this useless thing that has got no meaning, why is there such a big fight? They know that the only way they could conquer Africa, they had to divide it. They divided Africa. They gave it to all types of countries to manage. Our coming together is a threat to Europe. It's a threat to America. Our coming together, it means one currency backed by our mineral resources. And that currency will be against the dollar. And it will be more powerful than the dollar. When they say they are rebels at the border of Rwanda and DRC, we call on the African Command to go and make peace at that part of Africa without asking for the UN to come and help us. People say, Malema says, borderless Africa, he wants people without documents. How can he want people without documents when he's got documents himself? Because it's supposed to start with me. If we are in a struggle for not having documents, we must do like Mandela did and go and ban these IDs. One continental passport means that we must all be documented. And there must be an African system on where do we find each other. You can't commit crime here and run to Swaziland. We will find you because we've got an integrated system of Africa. The division of our continent benefit the imperialist forces. We don't need white supervisors. We need skilled Africans for us to run a successful economy. And let's make sure that we always rally behind what makes sense. The EFF is the only thing happening in South Africa now that makes sense. Thank you very much.
I'm a king, yes, I'm a king, I think I'm a king.